So, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, a brief introduction to myself and where I come from, and completely different to Amin, which is, again, that's interesting in itself. I was born and brought up actually in Salford, and my father was Irish and my mum English, so I always describe myself as an Anglo-Irish Jew. I didn't have a religious upbringing. In fact, my dad grew up in Ireland going to the synagogue and also the church, and decided he didn't really like either. But notwithstanding that, he had a sense, and so did my mother, of that they were belonging to the Jewish faith, and therefore we've always celebrated festivals and cultural matters to do with Judaism. So I describe myself as a cultural Jew, certainly not a religious one. And I went to a Jewish primary school, and then past the 11 plus, went to the grammar school across Manchester. And from the ages of 11 to 45, all my friends, a handful of Jewish friends, but they were nearly all Christian. And then I was I qualified. I went to Birmingham University, qualified as a solicitor, and the first and only Muslim I met in my first 45 years of life was called Huma, who was a solicitor in the same office as me. She was actually my trainee. And we used to talk at lunchtime all about Muslim practices and Jewish practices. And even though neither of us were religious, we knew what we were supposed to do. And we used to say to each other, oh, it's so similar. And the only other Muslim I'd heard in my first 45 years was a man that worked across the road from me. He was a solicitor. And I used to say that Asian man across the road pinches my divorce cases, because it seemed as though I didn't get as many divorce cases as I should. So Huma said, oh, you mean Afzal Khan? I said, I don't care what his name is. Whenever I meet him, I'm going to tell him that he pinched my divorce cases. Anyway, 10 years later, I did meet Afzal Khan, and it was through the Muslim Jewish Forum. And the reason I came to that, I was not community-minded, got to admit it. I just liked working in an office, didn't even like that some of the time, but I liked communicating with people. I've always liked talking to people, listening to people. And then in 2000, it was about the year 2000, I was going out with another Jewish fellow who, again, like myself, wasn't particularly religious. And we used to didn't have a very exciting life. We used to go to the cinema once a week or once a fortnight. And it came to August 2004, and there was absolutely nothing on at the cinema. And I looked at the back of the Jewish Telegraph, and it said, first meeting of Muslims and Jews, Manchester Town Hall. Henry Gutterman. I thought, oh, I'd like to meet that fellow. He's in the paper every week. And then it says Afzal Khan. I thought, that man, the man that pinched my divorces. So I rang up Martin. I said, I still want to see you this week, but I'm afraid there's nothing on at the cinema. He says, oh, we'll give it a miss then. Shows how enthusiastic he was. So I said, no, I'd like to see you. I said, but I'd like you to come with me to this talk. And it's first meeting of Muslims and Jews at Manchester Town Hall. He says, oh, that sounds really interesting. He says, yeah, I'll come with you, definitely. So I always, as I say, I'm not a religious person, but there's one thing I truly believe in, and we have it Christian fate, it's Kismet, and in Yiddish it's Beshet. And I believe if there'd been something good at the cinema in August 2004, I'd never have got involved with the Muslim Jewish Forum. So I think that it was meant to be. And then the next meeting I went to was in the November, which Amin's mentioned. And there was a room full of people, and they said, oh, let's form a committee. So I said to Martin, I said, I've never been on a committee in my life. And this is 15 years ago. And I said, I think I'll do that, because I had got another hobby, amateur dramatics, and that wasn't going great because there were much better singers and dancers than me. So I said, I think I'll have a new hobby and I'll join this committee. So I joined the committee, and the more I looked around, the more I thought, this is fascinating. And then I got to know Amin and his wife, first of all. And I used to describe them as the clever Muslim fellow and his nice wife. And then I got to know Afzal Khan very well and said to him, you won't know this, but I used to work, he says, across the road from me, Joan Ferguson. I said, yes, that's right. And you I nearly said pinch my divorces. You got a lot of divorce cases. Yes, that's right. So I met him, and it was actually through him that I got involved in politics. And I say I worked 30 years in the legal profession. Certainly the first 10 were very unhappy in the solicitor's office. The next 20 I prepared bills for solicitors, so I was more sort of a means, the accounting type of solicitor. And then both Afzal and my grandmother said, you ought to do something different. You're doing a lot of community work, you get on well with people. So that's how I became a counsellor. But working for the Muslim Jewish Forum helped me with that, because it helped me to organise events, to speak at meetings, and it gave me a grounding for my work as a counsellor. So why is this work important? Well, I've got a sentence which I use every time, and my sentence is, it is ignorance which creates bigotry, but it's mixing together and getting to know each other and about each other's cultures which creates understanding and harmony. And I have to say that before Huma, no idea what a Muslim was, and even after Huma, it was just, Muslims, it's that nice girl Huma's a Muslim. But I only really got to have friends as Muslims 15 years ago. So I'd now like to discuss, that's enough about me, about our events. Now, we actually were formed as a organisation, company limited by guarantee, on the 15th of June, and the year was 2005. So we're coming up to our 15th anniversary. And this is a list which I compiled a couple of years ago of all the events that we've carried out in that time. And I added it up yesterday. It's 118 events in 15 years. So it's about 10, and a bit less than that, about 8 a year on average, which takes some doing. And now I'd like to tell you what some of the events are. I think Amin mentioned it, that people like to eat, they do, and talk. And I think that's the best way of getting to know each other. I mean, after this today, you might go out and say, she said this, he said that, but there's no way we can really get to know each other, because when it's over, you'll be off and we'll be off. Whereas if you're eating, you've got to sit across the table from somebody and talk to them, and you get to know them. So our most popular event every year, and we've done 14, we're going to do the 15th this year, is our annual picnic. And that is a totally informal event. We ask people to come along with food. They can share the food, or sometimes there's some religious Jewish people come along who won't share food, but that's fine. And I've even got friends from the council coming along. A couple came and they brought the daughter, and they said, let us know next year. So we've widened the net tremendously with the picnics. We have put them on all over Manchester. We've tried Plattfields Park about 5 times, Heaton Park 3 times. But our favourite spot, and not just because it's near me, is St Mary's Park in Prestwich. It's because they have some very nice picnic benches. Oh, by the way, we're getting picnic benches in Swinton, so might be there next. So that's the picnic. And a funny story about the picnic, I got phoned up by the Daily Star about, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, 6 years ago. Are you the co-chair of the Muslim Jewish Forum? Or maybe it was only 5 years ago. I said, yes, that's right. We'd like to do an article. I said, which paper are you? They said, the Daily Star. So I said, well, we've got an event coming up, and it's a picnic. Oh, well, send us your photograph and we'll phone you after it and we'll talk to you. So I thought, well, yeah, we'll go along with this, but it's not likely to be put in the Daily Star. It's not very sensational. And then blow me, that week, big picture, big article, interfaith cooperation appears in the Daily Star. Now, a funny story about that is Amin didn't really want to go out and buy the Daily Star. He thought it would destroy his credibility, so he sent his wife into the newsagents to buy it for him. So that's our claim to fame. While I'm talking about the media, I have to say that at first it was very difficult to get the media on board, and they only really want to know bad news. Like if I'd have said to them, the Jewish member Johnny Weinberg punched Afzal Khan, it would have been front page, they would have loved that. But if I'm saying Muhammad Amin and Jackie Harrison had a wonderful discussion, it's not good news. So we've had to work really, really hard with the media. And even then, there's one paper that doesn't cover us, but never mind, we manage without. And I do think it's this, how can I say, increased media coverage which has brought about more members, more publicity, and done us good. In fact, a very shy Muslim lady joined us on a trip. She was shaking away, and I spoke to her. I said, we're not going to bite, we want you to join us. By the way, how did you hear about us? I read about your picnic. No, it wasn't the Daily Star. It was Bury Times. So it's important to get things in the media. The other annual events, we've had a few Eid parties to start with, and then iftars. Again, it's food. They are slightly more formal events because we do get high-profile speakers. We have had, and we hope to have him again, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. We've had the High Sheriff. We've had MPs such as Graham Stringer, Afzal Khan, and Rebecca Long-Bailey also spoke at one of our events. And we've had about 4 or 5 Lord Mayors of Manchester and a couple of mayors of Salford. So it's the iftar is slightly more formal, well, a lot more formal than the picnic, but it does involve food, of course. We do have meals out. I have to say, far more often in a kosher restaurant. We've had 3 big concerts, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. We've had like a Jewish klezmer group, and we've had various Middle Eastern type bands. And each of those 3 concerts has attracted 100 people. Now that, I say, we've thoroughly enjoyed. The most difficult thing about that is selling the tickets. We can get the artists, no problem, but selling tickets is more difficult. So quizzes, we've done 4 of those, and again, didn't really take off so much at first because Jewish people absolutely love quizzes. Asian people, it's not really their cup of tea, so we found. So I opened it up to some of my colleagues from Salford Council, and last year we got 50 at our quiz, and in fact I could have got 60 easily. I had to turn away a table. So we'll do quizzes again. 2 more types of events. Women's events, we did quite a few of those in the early years, but the person who did those events, she got married, has 2 small babies and doesn't have the time. Again, we stress we're all volunteers, and I'm busy as a councillor. Amin's busy with all these media activities and charitable activities, so we don't have enough time to do as much as we'd like. I think one of the questions Rashid asked was how many hours I spend on this a week. I would say on a normal week, a good 5 hours, replying to emails and thinking about events and doing agendas. But if we have a big event coming up, it easily 10 hours in that week, easily. We've done business networking, and maybe we can do that again. I had an idea we could get the High Sheriff when he's retired, and he can talk about Beaverbrook's Jewellers.
Yep.
So we can go back to business networking. So someone might say, do you not do anything serious? This is all eating and chatting. Well, yes, we do one serious event a year. And the reason why we don't do more than one is because, again, we feel the best way for people to loosen up, get to know each other, is informal chatting food events. The one serious event we do every year is a lawyers' event. And this was decided on by myself and Afzal Khan, both being former solicitors. And we've actually done, I think it's something like 12 lawyers' events in the past 14 years. We normally have a panel, 2 Muslim barristers, 2 Jewish barristers, and the topics we've covered have been very serious ones, such as citizenship, the Prevent strategy, faith schools and Ofsted, post-mortems, Jewish and Muslim divorce laws, inheritance laws. Now, there are some people who say to me, no, I don't like mixing and all the food, but I come to the lawyers. And there's some people I only see once a year, and they're the first in the line at the lawyers. So we have to really diversify and have something for everybody. And that's why I think it might be good to do another business networking again, because we haven't done that for a bit. Now, my favourite events recently, I have to say, are the away day trips, which I've organised. I've organised 2 to the Holocaust Memorial Centre, which is in Nottinghamshire. And we've had 2 excellent Holocaust survivor speakers, one from Amsterdam, the other one from Hungary. And we also had a day in Liverpool when we saw things of Muslim and Jewish interest. And we hope to go to Leeds this year. And why I've enjoyed those days is because I feel we've had chance to spend something like 10 hours together. And even the coach trips are interesting, because on the coach, 2.5 hours to Nottinghamshire, you can talk to each other and learn. And that's how you learn, by talking. So also, as Amin's touched on, we have had trips abroad, but we pay at our own expense. And we've been to the Auschwitz together, Granada, Cordoba, Brussels, Paris, Dubrovnik, Marrakesh, Lisbon, Parma, and Bratislava. I think that's 9. So we've done, and each place we go to, I organise a city tour, I organise a Jewish tour, and a trip to the mosque. Then the rest of the time, we usually sit and have a meal. So, but it's important we see, again, abroad, Muslim, Jewish interest. So I just want to conclude by saying I believe that these enjoyable events bring people together, and they're educational and informative at the same time, because you're learning about other people's cultures. And even the picnic is educational, because you learn about samosas or fish balls and other people's food. So, as Amin has said, the main aim of the Muslim and Jewish Forum was to develop social and cultural ties between Muslims and Jews in Greater Manchester. And I feel that by putting on these 118 events in 15 years, our Muslim Jewish Forum has made it normal for Muslims and Jews in Manchester to mix and become friends. And we've certainly developed much closer social and cultural ties. And as Amin quite rightly said, before the forum, Muslims and Jews, it wasn't we hated each other, we just didn't bother with each other. It was just saw each other next to each other in the bank queue, and that was that. But this forum has brought people together, made them friends with each other, social activities, and our profile has normalised Muslims and Jews being friends. Thank you for listening.